My name is Heidi Harman. I'm here today because I'm going to tell you a story about how we founded something called the GeekGirlMeetup. It's an unconference that aims to create more female role models for women in web code and startups. And for those who don't know what a startup is, it is a small service tech company. For example, Twitter or Facebook would be one of the larger ones. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a bit about myself first. I have done lots of things before I started this. I was an elite speed skater when I was a kid. I have also studied at the Kaospilots in Denmark. That's where I have my BA from. And the following years after that, I traveled around the world, and I also worked at different web agencies as a technical project manager, as an interaction designer, and as a planner. And that's where you kind of create stuff and strategies and decide how services work, which button you press. And that's a very, very creative line of work that you can do. It has very high technical requirements, but once you kind of get the hang of it, you realize that this is the core of creation. If you're technically savvy enough to be able to create an idea technically, that is the core creation point. For me, that was a very big insight. And I was fortunate enough to have a problem in my life that I understood that I could create a solution for. I liked running, and I didn't like running alone, so I wanted to create a site where I could go running together with other people and find them very easily. And because I knew technology well enough, I basically could create that site along with a lot of other people. And I got an innovation grant for that, so I got a lot of money to basically create that site along with a research team with a professor from the Stockholm School of Economics. And due to my work with that, and even my previous work at the agencies, I went to a lot of technical conferences. And that's where the story starts. My situation was that I felt that I could create whatever I wanted, because technology is much simpler today than it was before, when generations back. Anyone can create anything, more or less. But I still had a very serious feeling when I went to conferences where there were very, very few women on stage, and there were also very, very few women in the audience. I was really happy in one sense, because I was amongst peers who were, when you're among a lot of fantastically tech-savvy, smart, innovative, creative, and technologically intelligent men, that's fantastic. I mean, that's wonderful. But somewhere, I had this really deep feeling that, we live in a world where we're taught to play and create things, and that's not necessarily reserved for men at all. I really felt like I needed to find women that would program robots with me, that would help me create things, women that I could talk about strategies with, about code. And I knew that on a Friday night, if I started talking about my tech, it would take about 12.5 minutes, because I actually clocked it once, before I got the, please stop talking about tech, it's Friday night, we want to have a glass of wine. And I was like, God, this can't be good enough, And I had a little bell in my head that rang, and it said, what the fuck? This isn't good enough. I can't live in a world in 2011, or at the time it was 2008, where I go to conferences and it's not really... why is this? Is it because girls don't go to their boss and ask, hi, could I have a really expensive ticket to a really good conference so I can take that knowledge, make it over in my head, and plug it back into our company, and we will earn more money? Why is that step not a natural thing? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But I did react on that thing in my head saying, the world could be better than this. The world, just because it doesn't exist, the world that you don't see, or the thing that you need doesn't exist doesn't mean that the world is wrong. It's just incomplete. It's because you or I haven't created the reality that we need to set for ourselves. And once you've had that feeling and you've thought about it for a while, you will start asking yourself, okay, it's not good enough, but which particle do I need to add here to make that a world that you wish to be? So you have to start thinking, okay, but what do I need? What are my immediate needs to make this better? I'm going to ask you, could you kind of go like this when I have about 5 minutes left? Oh, brilliant, you already have a clock. Thank you. And our needs were very clear. I wanted more female role models in web code and startups. I wanted active knowledge exchange, and that was because you go to these conferences and you're inspired, and that's fantastic. But what happens if I want to learn something practical? There's like an inflation and inspiration, you get all inspired, and then you go home and you're like, oh, what do I do now? So what I wanted was a conference that we could practically kind of give away knowledge actively to participants. And of course, we wanted to create networks. And we were very, very inspired by Reboot in Denmark, which is an unconference where anybody could host a talk if they wanted to. And of course, by TED, so it's like really nice to be here. This is what the conferences look like. It's a little bit different than the rest, usually. And what we did was that we created that valid alternative, because that's how you start change. You create a valid alternative to the other alternatives that you have, but the ones that you think, you know what, that's not good enough. I can do better. And while you're at it, realize that you might actually create a little dent in the universe, something that people haven't done before. And you really should. But a lot of people start with thinking, oh my God, we need this huge program, we need like printed papers and everything needs to be perfect. And you know what? It doesn't. If you change that thought into thinking how little is enough, and this is like a classical programming thought, how little is enough to make the little thing work? It doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to have, CSS on it, it doesn't have to have anything. How little is enough to push the button, make it work? So we started with that thought, and we realized that what we were really eager to have was participation. We wanted that every person that came in to this conference signed up on the internet forum to say, I want to help out. So we basically asked them, we were like, what can you help with? You could blog, you could tweet, you could live stream this, or you could also share your knowledge about web code or startups in this conference. Because we couldn't fly in people, like really expensive people. So what we did was like, we took the local stars that we had, we asked them to participate in the conference and give their talks, give their view of the world, their view of the little code. Because actually anybody can speak 20 minutes about something that they're deeply passionate about. And imagine if you have a bunch of really creative people that know that super creative tool for making things talk. All of a sudden, we had the role models. We had them on stage, and we became each other's role models. And after that, not really any conference can say that, you know what, we couldn't find any female people that know anything about tech, because we have a really long list. Yeah. And it also gives a very nice feeling for everybody, because it feels like everybody's participating. And it's not me making this, or the girl that I started this with. Everybody's making this. We're making this. If somebody says, well, it's not enough electricity cords for our computers, you know what? Why don't you bring some next time? You work at a big company, you have extra cords, bring them. What we did was that we had one person that did the program. This is one of the women that did the program. And we, as you see, it's paper. It's not like a fancy program. This is like, text that you put up on a wall. And that's it. That's how little you need. You need one person that sets up a formula. You need one person that prints out the program, puts together the program. And then you need one person that does the sponsorship and the communication. And when you do things like this, I would say that I led myself to this thought. And I would say that every person that we get in to speak at these conferences, we lead from point A to point B. And leadership, as opposed to management, management is doing things that have been done before. Leadership is taking a person from point A to point B, mentally or physically. So we try to transform how people think about speaking. Because every time a girl walks up and talks about her passionate, techie subjects, she becomes a role model for other people. And basically, if you think of that knowledge that you get as being something that you share with other people, I give you this knowledge. Please take it and do whatever you want with it. You have practical, active knowledge sharing that other people can take with them and use practically when they leave that conference. And that is so much more than just inspiration. Allow yourself to feel good about what you're good at is also another way of seeing that. Whether it's programming, whether it is about describing how you can use programming for different things, or just like inspiring people to try things that they haven't tried before. And it's like Emily here says, she's talking about Haskell, that's another programming language. Do you miss that exciting feeling you had when you coded as a kid? Become a happy idiot again and learn Haskell. You know, and I think that's a lot of the different things that we will come upon us in life. If we can try doing things that we haven't done before and accept that when you learn something new, you're not knowledgeable about it. And allow yourself to be in that little scene for a while, because then you have all the possibilities to learn something new. And that's what we're trying to create a very like safe forum for, where you are allowed to fail, you are allowed to test. And some people just speak about things that they did that are connected to the internet. This is Anna Oskarsson talking about when she reported. She was one of the first English-speaking people live streaming in Bambuser through from the Pirate Bay rättegång. What's that? Court, yeah, when Pirate Bay was in court. And that was an extremely interesting case that she came and gave a talk about. And this is how it started. We started in 2008 by having drinks and talking about web code and startups. And we thought that is not good enough, let's have more. So we started a conference, and the first one was called Proud to be a Geek Girl in 2009. And we had about 50 places, and about a lot more than we expected turned up. Britt, you were there, that was lovely to have you there. And even though we're called GeekGirlMeetup, we have people of all ages, which is really cool. So we have people spanning from 12 to as old as people get, which is, you know, amazing to have. And then, yeah, we realized that when you have people showing up at the door saying, when we say, oh, shit, you're not on the list, and they're like, it doesn't matter, I'm coming in. That's when you know that you've got something. Where actually people need this. And it's really sad that people need this in one sense, a female tech conference. But what we do know and what we're absolutely convinced about is that people will always need networks, and if we can create that, that is fantastic. So we've grown along the years, and up here we started having 2 conferences per year with about 150 participants per time. And then we started having evening sessions every month with about 70 participants. And then it's just completely exploded. And yeah, we're still doing it, and we're doing the next one in 2012. But what happened along this time in Stockholm was that we got a spin-off called VP Girls. We got Malmö, Öresund, Göteborg, Mexico, and Denmark. And we were like, how did this happen? We have no idea. But because of the way that we designed the participation, people could take that and just plug it in wherever they were in the world. So I'm starting it up in London right now, where I live. And yeah, that's nice. And today, after reacting on that little bell in my head saying, I really need a bunch of really cool, techie, you know, creative women as well as the guys that are fantastic as well, I have that, and I'm really, really happy about it. So I'd like to encourage you, everybody, that's, especially when you're in high school, like, sometimes we suppress our needs. But being in touch with your needs, what you need right now, is a really good question. Whenever you're confused, like, embrace that feeling of asking yourself, what is my need right now? And basically, like, never doubt that a small group of dedicated and committed citizens can change the world, because it is actually the only thing that ever has. There's no statues of committees, right? And I guess, you know, pretty much, I've probably missed a lot of things that I wish I could have told you. But there are other talks online where you can see that. And I'm going to say thank you for me, and maybe open up for some questions so we can have some dialogue, because that's usually where a lot of interesting things happen. Thank you.